I didn't find out my relationship was a lie because he cheated. There was no lipstick, no secret texts, no late night excuses. I found out because my boyfriend's book club accidentally added me to their group chat. At first, I laughed, a short, confused breath of disbelief. Men having a book club? Fine, healthy. I'd encouraged it, actually. He needed his own space, his own thing. Wednesdays were always book club night. Sometimes they met at different apartments. Sometimes they grabbed drinks after. I never questioned it. Until my phone buzzed. Book Club Bros. I froze. I had never been part of this chat. The first message loaded before I could even think to leave. All right, boys, updated spreadsheet is live. Don't forget to rate this month's metrics. Metrics. I frowned, thumb hovering. Maybe it was a joke. Fantasy football? Career tracking? Something harmless. Then I opened the link. The spreadsheet title was neat. Professional. Investment portfolio analysis. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about books. This wasn't about work. It was about women. About us. Rows and columns filled with names, ages, jobs, incomes, physical notes, emotional baggage, long-term potential. Girlfriends. Women they were dating. Women they were considering keeping. I scrolled slowly, dread creeping up my spine. Then I saw my name. My breath left my body in a sharp, silent exhale. There I was, reduced to numbers. My career, my income, my future value, my upgrade potential. High emotional availability, good income trajectory, no property yet. Strong long-term ROI if she stays motivated. ROI, return on investment. My hands started shaking, not from anger yet, but from shock so pure it felt unreal, like watching myself from outside my body. The chat kept going. Lock her down before she realizes she can do better. She's great, but might plateau. At least yours has earning potential. Mine's sweet, but risky. And then my boyfriend typed the sentence that split my chest open. She thinks I'm with her for love. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, realizing that while I thought I was building a future with someone who loved me, he had been auditing my worth. And I wasn't even supposed to see it. Before the spreadsheet, before the chat, before the moment my chest cracked open in quiet disbelief, my relationship looked normal. Good, even. The kind of good you don't question because nothing is obviously wrong. I met him at a brewery. Loud place, long tables, the smell of hops and fried food in the air. I remember thinking he seemed grounded, confident without being loud, attentive without trying too hard. We talked about work, travel, the kind of lives we wanted in 5 years. He laughed easily, asked follow-up questions, looked at me like he was actually listening. I left that night thinking, this feels easy. We started dating not long after, 2 years together, comfortable, familiar. The kind of relationship where routines quietly replace butterflies and you mistake stability for safety. He worked in marketing, made decent money. I had my own career, my own income, my own independence. From the outside, it looked balanced. We moved in together 6 months ago. That felt like a milestone. Boxes stacked in the hallway, shared furniture decisions, figuring out whose mugs were whose. We split rent proportionally. I paid my share. He paid his. No fights about money. No dramatic conversations about power or control. Or so I thought. He had his book club. Wednesdays. Always Wednesdays. He'd mentioned it early on, casually. Just a group of guys who read and talk. Helps me decompress. I liked that. Encouraged it, even. Everyone needs space outside a relationship. I didn't want to be the girlfriend who hovered, who needed to be included in everything. They met at different apartments. Sometimes they went out after. Drinks, late-night conversations. He'd come home relaxed, a little buzzed, talking about random topics. I never pushed for details, never checked his phone. Trust was something I gave freely because I had no reason not to. I thought that was maturity. Looking back, there were small things I brushed off. Comments framed as jokes. We should think about buying property soon. Renting forever doesn't really build wealth. You're great with experiences, but assets matter too. He never demanded anything, never raised his voice. It always sounded like concern, like planning, like us. I thought he was thinking long-term. We never had an explicit conversation about investing together. Never agreed to merge finances or plan purchases as a unit. Still, he'd casually bring up houses, neighborhoods, mortgage rates. I assumed it was just talk, a shared future, loosely imagined. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that while I was imagining a life built on partnership, he was part of a system. A group. A place where women were discussed when we weren't in the room, where affection was translated into metrics, where compatibility was ranked and scored. I had met some of those guys from his book club, smiled at them at parties, made polite conversation. I had no idea they were sitting in a chat together, comparing notes, assigning numbers, deciding who was worth locking down and who was an upgrade waiting to happen. I thought love was happening quietly between two people. I didn't realize I was part of a portfolio. I didn't realize my relationship had performance reviews. And I definitely didn't realize that one wrong tap on a phone screen, one accidental ad, would pull the curtain back on everything I thought was real. Because once you see how someone measures your worth, you can never unsee it. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It never does. Before the spreadsheet detonated my understanding of everything, there were small moments, quiet comments that slid past me because they sounded reasonable, practical, caring even. He had opinions about money, not aggressive ones, strategic ones. He'd say things like, "Rent is basically throwing money away," while scrolling through listings he had no immediate plan to act on. Or, "We're at the age where people either build equity or fall behind." He always said people, never you. I appreciated that. It felt respectful. Sometimes he'd ask what I thought about combining goals. Not finances, just goals. Long-term thinking, ownership, stability. He framed it as ambition, not pressure. I took it as interest in a shared future. What I didn't realize was that these conversations weren't happening in isolation. They were being compared, evaluated. I remember one night, weeks before everything blew up, we were sitting on the couch, legs tangled, some half-watched show playing in the background. He was scrolling on his phone, distracted. I asked him what was so interesting. "Just the guys," he said, "book club stuff." I smiled, leaned into him, didn't think twice. Another time, he asked, casually, how I felt about buying property someday. I said I wasn't opposed, but I wasn't rushing. I liked flexibility. Experiences mattered to me. He nodded, but something shifted in his expression. Just for a second, like he was filing the answer away. At the time, I thought I was reading too much into it. There were also jokes, little ones. He'd tease me about being sentimental, about choosing trips over tangible assets. He never mocked me outright. He never crossed a line. That's what made it easy to dismiss. I didn't feel controlled. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel unloved. If anything, I felt chosen. He told me he loved me, frequently, said I was supportive, smart, grounded. He talked about us in future tense, holidays, plans, possibilities. So when I noticed that money came up more often than romance, I rationalized it. We're adults. This is what grown-up relationships look like, right? What I didn't see, what I couldn't see, was that while I was answering his questions honestly, those answers were being logged somewhere else. That my hesitation about buying property wasn't just a difference in priorities, it was a data point. That my income trajectory wasn't just my career, it was a projection. That my personality, my patience, my affection were being translated into long-term potential. There was a moment, small, forgettable at the time, where he said, "I just want to make sure we're both making smart decisions." I remember smiling and saying, "About what?" He paused, just a beat too long. "Life," he said. I accepted that answer because I trusted him. I didn't know that smart decisions were being debated every Wednesday night by men who weren't in my relationship, but thought they had a say in its value. I didn't know that love, to them, wasn't enough on its own. And I definitely didn't know that somewhere in a shared document, my name was already sitting in a row, waiting to be scored. Once the shock settled into something colder, heavier, I stopped reacting and started observing. I scrolled, slowly, methodically. Every row told a story I hadn't agreed to be part of. Women reduced to bullet points. Careers flattened into earning potential. Personality traits reframed as liabilities or assets. One girlfriend labeled high maintenance, another flagged for family complications. A third described as sweet, but limited upside. This wasn't casual trash talk. It was systematic. Then the messages started coming faster. Updated mine. Added her parents' vacation place. Thinking engagement by holidays if she stays aligned. She's pushing experiences again. Like, babe, I need assets, not memories. My stomach twisted. I kept reading. They talked about timing, about pressure, about locking women down before we realized our own value, about upgrading if ROI stalled. And then there it was, the sentence that broke whatever illusion I had left. My boyfriend typed, "She thinks I'm with her for love." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Not because they were cruel, Because they were casual. He didn't hesitate, didn't qualify it, didn't joke. He stated it like a fact, like an internal note he never expected me to see. Something shifted inside me. This wasn't betrayal in the dramatic sense. It was worse. It was dehumanization. I checked the group details again. 7 members, 6 men, and me. Someone had misclicked, added the wrong contact. A tiny, stupid mistake that cracked open an entire worldview. I could already hear the excuses forming in my head. It's just guy talk. You're taking it out of context. It was a joke. You're overreacting. I knew exactly how this would go if I confronted him privately. He would minimize, he would gaslight, and the spreadsheet would disappear while the mindset stayed. So I didn't leave. I documented. Screenshots of the spreadsheet, screenshots of the messages, names, dates, context. Then I did something reckless. I clicked into their profiles, cross-checked Instagram tags, couple photos, captions full of hearts and promises. It didn't take long to identify the women attached to each name. I spent nearly an hour crafting the message. Not angry, not emotional. Precise. When I finally posted, the chat went silent. Hey, book club brodos, thanks for the accidental invite. Typing bubble froze. The spreadsheet is impressive. You put a lot of effort into evaluating women like investment portfolios. Then I tagged every woman I could identify. Since transparency seems important here, I figured everyone deserved to see their ratings. And finally, P.S. I was actually considering buying property. Not anymore. Not with someone who sees me as ROI. Send. Then I messaged each woman directly. Screenshots attached. I don't know you, but you deserve to see this. Then I left the group chat. My phone immediately started ringing. I didn't answer. The inciting moment wasn't the spreadsheet. It was the decision not to stay silent. The silence after I left the chat felt unreal. For a few seconds, my phone was still. Then it exploded. His name lit up my screen. Once, twice, over and over. Calls stacked on calls. Texts piling in so fast they blurred together. I didn't answer. I sat there on the edge of the couch, phone in my hand, staring at nothing. My heart was racing, but my thoughts were eerily clear. That surprised me. I expected hysteria, tears, screaming, panic. Instead, I felt hollow, like something vital had drained out of me all at once. I stood up and walked into the bedroom. Everything looked the same. His shoes by the door, his jacket on the chair, his toothbrush next to mine. A life that had felt shared an hour ago now looked staged, like a set I was seeing for the first time. I grabbed boxes from the closet. I didn't throw anything. I didn't rage. I folded his clothes carefully. Shirts stacked, pants rolled, shoes paired. It felt important to do it right, as if precision could keep me from breaking down. My phone buzzed again. Please answer. We need to talk. You don't understand. This is out of context. Out of context? I almost laughed. By the time I taped the last box shut, my hands were steady. My chest still hurt, but it wasn't chaos anymore. It was resolve. An hour later, I heard footsteps in the hallway. His key rattled in the lock, then stopped. A knock. Soft at first, then louder. Please, he said through the door. Just open it. I walked over and opened the door, but kept the chain on. He looked wrecked. Hair messy, eyes tired. Panic radiating off him like heat. Thank God, he said. You don't get it. That was private. It was just guys talking. Guys talking, I repeated. My voice sounded calm, almost detached. Includes rating women like cattle? He ran a hand through his hair. It wasn't like that. What part wasn't like that? I asked. The spreadsheet? The ROI? Or the part where you said I think you're with me for love? His mouth opened, closed. That was taken out of context. I stared at him. What context makes that sentence okay? He sighed, frustrated now. You're blowing this up. Everyone talks about this stuff. We just organized it. Organized it? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Can we talk inside? He asked. Please. No. I pointed to the boxes stacked neatly by the door. Your things are packed. You can take them tomorrow. His face fell. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Ask your book club for investment advice. That's when his tone changed. You had no right to expose private conversations, he snapped. That was a violation. And there it was. Not remorse, not shame, anger because he got caught. You had no right to reduce me to a spreadsheet, I said evenly. You violated me first. He shook his head. We weren't hurting anyone. You were hurting me, I said. You just didn't expect me to find out. He tried again, soft voice now, the one he used when he wanted something. Baby, I love you, that part was real. I met his eyes. Love doesn't come with a performance score. His phone started buzzing in his pocket. He glanced down, face tightening. "They're freaking out," he muttered. "Everyone's mad." "I bet," I said. "You've ruined everything," he snapped, suddenly defensive. "You embarrass people." "I told the truth," I replied. "If the truth embarrasses you, that's not my fault." A neighbor's door cracked open down the hall. An older man peeked out. "Keep it down," he said. My boyfriend gestured at me. "She's overreacting." The neighbor looked at me. I spoke before he could twist it. I found out my boyfriend rated me in a spreadsheet with his friends based on my income and ROI. The neighbor blinked, then looked at him. The next 72 hours felt like watching dominoes fall in slow motion, except every domino was a relationship detonating in real time. I didn't have to do anything. The chaos moved on its own. The morning after he came to collect his things, my phone started lighting up. Not from him, but from women I barely knew. Some messages were short, some were paragraphs long. Most of them carried the same tone, shock turning into rage. "Is this real?" "He said you misunderstood." I can't stop shaking. I answered when I could. I didn't editorialize. I didn't persuade. I just sent the screenshots again and again. The spreadsheet, the messages, the context. By noon, I opened Instagram and realized the damage had gone public. One woman had posted the spreadsheet to her story, names visible, ratings circled in red. "Ladies, Beam," she wrote, "are you dating a man or an investment analyst?" Another posted a screenshot of her own row. "Apparently I'm a 6.5 because I'm a teacher. Thanks, babe." The comments were brutal. People weren't debating nuance. They weren't splitting hairs. They saw it for what it was, dehumanizing. By that evening, I heard through a mutual friend that at least 3 of the men had been dumped. One relationship ended in screaming, another in silence. One woman had packed her things and left without saying a word. And my ex? He spiraled. That night, he showed up at my apartment building. I didn't let him in. The front desk called my phone. "There's a man downstairs asking for you." "I'm not seeing him," I said. He buzzed anyway, over and over, until security stepped in and told him to leave. The next day he tried again, this time indirectly. A mutual friend called me, voice low, careful. "He's not doing well," she said. "He says you destroyed his reputation." "I corrected it," I replied. She hesitated. "He's telling people you violated his privacy." I felt a cold prickle run down my spine. By day 3, his narrative evolved. Another friend messaged me. "He's saying you were financially abusive." I stared at the words, heart dropping. "What?" I typed. "He's telling people you controlled money, that the spreadsheet was him and the guys supporting each other." That was the moment something in me snapped. Up until then, I had been hurt, disgusted, resolute. Now I was angry. I pulled up my payment history. Venmo, bank transfers, screenshots of receipts. I laid it all out, methodically. My rent payment, his rent payment, groceries I covered, trips I paid for, the expensive birthday gift he wanted and I bought without hesitation. Then I posted. One story, calm caption. "Since we're talking about financial abuse, here's 2 years of receipts. We split rent proportionally. I paid more than my share. I covered most dates. I bought the gifts. Meanwhile, I was rated in a spreadsheet as an investment with room for improvement. Decide for yourselves." I didn't tag him. I didn't need to. Within an hour, the messages flooded in. "He lied to us. I'm so sorry. This changes everything." His version collapsed instantly. He called me. I answered this time. "You need to take that down," he said. "You're making me look bad." "You did that yourself," I replied. "This is revenge." "No," I said calmly. "This is defense." He started crying, not quietly, desperately. "People are calling me horrible things." "That's unfortunate," I said, "but don't accuse someone of abuse if you don't want the truth to come out." He threatened lawyers. None ever called. Meanwhile, his friend group imploded. I found out later they'd had an emergency book club meeting at a bar. Damage control, apparently. According to one ex-girlfriend, it dissolved into finger-pointing within minutes. One man blamed another for creating the spreadsheet. Another blamed the one who accidentally added me. My ex blamed everyone except himself. They turned on each other fast. And through all of it, I stayed quiet. I didn't chase closure. I didn't demand apologies. I didn't explain myself anymore. I let consequences do the talking. Because escalation isn't always louder actions. Sometimes it's standing still while everything built on lies collapses around the people who told them. "That's cold," he said. My boyfriend flushed red. He muttered something under his breath and stepped back. "I'll come tomorrow with witnesses," he said. "You'll regret this." "Sounds good," I said, and closed the door. When the lock clicked, my knees finally gave. I slid down against the door, breath shaking, not from doubt, but from the realization that the man I loved never saw me as a person, only a number, and I had just refused to be one. After the noise died down, the quiet crept in. That was the hardest part. The first few days had been chaos. Messages, posts, confrontations, adrenaline keeping me upright. I had something to do, something to react to. But once the stories slowed and the social media fires burned themselves out, I was left alone with the aftermath. And it hit. I started waking up with that heavy pressure in my chest, like something was sitting there, unmoving. I'd reach for my phone out of habit, then remember there was no one I wanted to talk to. No good morning text, no shared routine to anchor the day. I walked through the apartment and noticed the gaps he'd left behind. Empty closet space, a bare hook where his jacket used to hang, silence where his voice used to fill the room. It wasn't that I missed him. It was that I missed the version of my life I thought I was living. I kept replaying moments in my head, searching for signs I should have caught sooner. Conversations that now sounded different in retrospect. Compliments that came with conditions. Future plans that were always framed in terms of optimization, not connection. At night, the doubts crept in. Was I naive? Was I foolish for not seeing it? Did I mistake ambition for affection? There was one thought I couldn't shake, the most poisonous one. If I hadn't exposed it publicly, would this hurt less? I imagined the alternate version of events. Me confronting him quietly, him apologizing, deleting the spreadsheet, promising it meant nothing. Me swallowing the discomfort for the sake of keeping the relationship intact. That version of me would still be waking up next to someone who measured her worth in numbers. That realization didn't bring comfort, but it brought clarity. Still, the loneliness was real. One afternoon, I ran into a mutual friend at a grocery store. She hesitated before speaking, like she was stepping around broken glass. "Are you okay?" she asked. I wanted to say yes. Instead, I shrugged. "I will be." She nodded. "He's not." I felt a flicker of something. Pity, maybe, but it faded quickly. His suffering didn't undo what he'd done. It didn't change the way he'd talked about me when he thought I wasn't listening. That night, my phone buzzed. A message request. It was his mother. I stared at her name for a long moment before opening it. "Honey, I'm so sorry for what you've been through. I saw the screenshots." My throat tightened. She continued. "He showed them to me, thinking I'd take his side. I didn't. What he did was wrong. His father and I are embarrassed." I sat on the edge of the bed, phone trembling in my hand. She told me she had tried to talk sense into him, that he wanted her to convince me to forgive him, that she had refused. "You're a good woman," she wrote. "He took you for granted." I didn't cry right away. The tears came later, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Not because I wanted him back, but because the validation came too late to save anything. The darkest moment wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the grief. Grieving a future that had felt solid. Grieving the belief that love protected you from being reduced to a number. Grieving the version of myself who trusted without hesitation. I curled up on the couch that night, lights off, listening to the city hum outside. My phone stayed face down. I didn't want reassurance. I didn't want apologies. I wanted the pain to pass. And for the first time since everything happened, I let myself feel it fully, without distraction, without anger, without performance. Just the quiet ache of understanding that something fundamental had ended, and there was no going back. The turning point didn't come with a confrontation. It came with clarity. A week after everything blew up, the noise finally thinned enough for patterns to emerge. Not rumors, not emotions, patterns. I started getting messages from people I didn't expect. Boyfriends I had never met, friends of friends, women who had been adjacent to the fallout, but not central to it. One message stood out. "Just so you know, they're turning on each other." I asked for details. Apparently, after the mass breakups, the men had gathered for an emergency book club meeting at a bar. Damage control, they called it. The irony didn't escape me. According to one woman who heard it secondhand, the night unraveled fast. Accusations flew. One man blamed another for creating the spreadsheet. Another blamed the one who accidentally added me. My ex blamed everyone for being careless. Someone finally said what none of them wanted to admit, that the spreadsheet hadn't been a joke, that it had been active for months, updated, discussed, defended, and that my ex had been one of the most ruthless contributors. Hearing that didn't hurt. It grounded me. Later that night, I received a message request from one of the girlfriends who had posted her row publicly. I thought I was crazy for feeling reduced to my paycheck. Turns out I wasn't. And then the strangest one. "Your ex is furious at the guy who added you. Says he ruined everything." That's when it clicked. He wasn't angry because he'd hurt me. He was angry because the system collapsed, because the private structure that protected his behavior was gone. That realization shifted something fundamental inside me. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about embarrassment. It was about exposure. A few days later, he tried again. He didn't come to my apartment this time. He posted instead a long Instagram caption. Sometimes the people you trust most betray you. Privacy matters. I'm learning who my real friends are. The comments weren't kind. People asked questions. People posted screenshots. People refused to let him rewrite the narrative. Then he escalated. Another post, longer, louder. He accused me, without naming me, of violating privacy, of manipulation, of weaponizing information. He framed himself as a victim of betrayal in a world that punished men for wanting stability. By the second week, the chaos stopped being loud and started being permanent. The friend group didn't just fracture, it imploded. Screenshots kept circulating long after the initial outrage faded. One of the men posted the full spreadsheet, names blurred this time, but descriptions still visible. It spread faster than anything I could have controlled, even if I'd wanted to. Comment sections turned into public trials. People weren't debating context anymore. They were calling the behavior what it was. Dehumanizing, calculated, cruel. One woman, whose row labeled her sweet but limited upside, posted a long caption about realizing she'd been shrinking herself to stay lovable. Another wrote about spending months feeling guilty for not earning enough, only to discover her partner had been quietly ranking her worth. My ex disappeared from public view for a while, went private, then re-emerged, trying to regain control of the narrative. First came the soft angle, a message through a mutual friend. He's sorry, the friend said carefully. He knows he messed up. He just wants to move on. I didn't respond. Then came irritation. Another message, this time direct. You've made your point. Why are you still dragging this out? I stared at the screen, confused. I hadn't posted again. I hadn't contacted him. I hadn't said his name. The truth didn't require my participation anymore. I replied once. I posted once in self-defense after you lied about me publicly. I'm not dragging anything out. If you want this to stop talking about me. There was no response. A few days later, I ran into him at a grocery store. I was halfway down an aisle when I felt it, that instinctive tightening in my chest. I looked up and saw him frozen at the end of the row, cart abandoned, eyes locked on me like he'd seen a ghost. I nodded. Once. Polite. Distant. I turned away. He followed me to the checkout. Can we talk? He asked quietly, voice strained. Just for a minute. I exhaled slowly. No. I need closure. You got closure when I asked you to leave my apartment. He swallowed. You're destroying my reputation. I finally turned to face him. I corrected a lie you told about me. That's not how people see it. Then maybe think about why. His eyes filled. We were together for 2 years. Yes, I said evenly. And during that time, you rated me in a spreadsheet and discussed my value like an asset. He flinched. I did love you, he said. Maybe, I replied. But love that needs ROI isn't love. I walked away. He didn't follow. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects settled into facts. One man from the group, whose girlfriend had been rated low because of her job, started dating someone new, posted about it. Feels good to be valued for who I am. Another man, one of the higher earners, got engaged to someone completely different. Fast, quiet, no commentary. As for my ex, I heard things secondhand. Therapy, burned bridges, friends who stopped answering his calls. Then came the email. Long, carefully written, apologetic in tone. He admitted the spreadsheet was dehumanizing, that he got caught up in something toxic, that he lost sight of what mattered. He said he understood if I couldn't forgive him, but hoped we could someday be friends. Friends. I read it once, then again. It almost sounded sincere. Almost. But sincerity doesn't erase harm. I didn't reply. The fallout wasn't explosive anymore. It was quiet. Final. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected beneath the exhaustion and grief. Relief. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. Because when he crossed into accusing me of financial abuse, when he started telling people I controlled money, that I made him feel small about his income, that was the line. And I didn't raise my voice. I showed receipts. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Factually. 2 years of transactions. Proportional rent payments. Money I sent for groceries, trips, dates. An expensive gift I bought because he wanted it. One post. One caption. Since we're discussing financial abuse, here are the facts. That was the moment the power shifted. Not because I won an argument, But because lies collapse under evidence, his phone calls stopped after that. The threats faded. The legal talk vanished. And for the first time since this started, I felt steady. I hadn't just ended a relationship. I had reclaimed my narrative. And once you take that back, no one can reduce you to a number again. 3 weeks later, things settled. Not neatly, not cleanly, but enough. People stopped messaging for updates. The screenshots faded into the background noise of the internet. Life resumed its quiet, ordinary rhythm, the kind that feels unfamiliar after chaos, but comforting once you let it back in. I stayed single. Not because I was afraid of love, but because trust takes time to rebuild once you've seen behind the curtain. Therapy helped. Long walks helped. Talking to friends who didn't ask me to explain myself helped. Work felt strange for a while. A few coworkers knew what had happened. Small industries carry stories faster than you expect. Some offered sympathy. Some avoided the topic altogether. One older colleague pulled me aside and said, "My ex-husband married me for my earning potential. Took me 10 years and a divorce to figure it out. You figured it out in 2 with a spreadsheet. Consider yourself lucky." Perspective has a way of landing when you're ready to hear it. People asked if I regretted exposing everything. The honest answer? No. If I had confronted him privately, he would have minimized it, apologized just enough, deleted the spreadsheet, promised it meant nothing, and the mindset would have stayed exactly the same, quietly operating beneath the surface. By bringing it into the light, I didn't just end my relationship. I ended a system. I potentially saved other women from committing their lives to men who saw them as assets with depreciation curves, from partners who confused ambition with entitlement. Some called it petty. Petty is responding to small slights. This was responding to being fundamentally disrespected by someone who claimed to love me. I started looking at houses, not for us, not to prove my value, not to increase anyone's opinion of my potential. Just for me, within my budget, on my terms. I'm thinking about getting a dog, maybe a big one, the kind that sheds everywhere and doesn't care about your income, your trajectory, or your ROI. My mom asked if I'm dating. Not yet. I need time. Healing isn't linear, and trust doesn't snap back into place just because the villain got exposed. But I'm okay. More than okay, actually. What's left now isn't anger. It's relief. To anyone who sees themselves in this story, trust your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Don't gaslight yourself into staying quiet to keep the peace. And if you ever discover that the person you're dating values your earning potential more than your humanity, leave. Love isn't a spreadsheet. And anyone who needs to rate you to decide your worth was never qualified to have you in the first place. I'm good now, really. And that's the best ending I could have asked for.